Today, we are tearing up the history books. We're going to look at some of the biggest myths you thought were true, all thanks to some incredible new science that is completely changing how we see the past.
I mean, really think about that. What if the basic stories we tell ourselves about our ancestors, who they were, how they lived, what they could do, what if it's all just wrong? Because what we're finding out, thanks to some seriously cool new technology, is that the real story is so much weirder and way more amazing than we ever gave it credit for. Okay, let's dive right in.
So first up, we're going way, way back. We're talking about tackling the biggest ideas we have about where we all come from. For like 100 years, the story was super simple. Men hunted mammoths, women gathered berries. End of story. But then in 2020, archaeologists in Peru found this incredible 9,000-year-old skeleton. It was buried with a full, top-of-the-line hunting kit. Everyone just assumed, oh, it's a great chieftain, a powerful man. Until, that is, modern lab tests looked at the proteins inside the teeth and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this expert hunter was a teenage girl. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. Oh no, this discovery was a bombshell. It made scientists go back and look at all these other old graves they'd found across the Americas, and what they found was just stunning. It now looks like up to half, 50% of all big game hunters from that time might have actually been women. That old man the hunter idea, pretty much shattered. We used to think the human family tree during the Ice Age was pretty simple, right? You had our ancestors, Homo sapiens, and you had the Neanderthals, kind of hanging out in Europe and Asia. Seems straightforward enough. Or so we thought. Believe it or not, our entire understanding was completely flipped upside down by this. A tiny little piece of a pinky bone found in a cave in Siberia. In 2010, scientists did something that sounds like science fiction. They pulled ancient DNA out of it, and it led to one of the biggest discoveries of the century. The results that came back were a total shock. I mean, the DNA wasn't a match for modern humans, and it wasn't a match for Neanderthals either. They had found a ghost, a totally new branch of the human family that we now call the Denisovans. And the craziest part? We now know they lived alongside our ancestors and even had kids with them. And hey, whoever said that only humans got to have a Stone Age? Archaeologists in Brazil found these stone tools buried in layers going back thousands of years that prove Capuchin monkeys have had their own tool-making culture for at least 3,000 years. The ancient tools are a perfect match for the hammer and anvil stones the monkeys in that exact spot are still using today to crack open nuts. Now, it's not just our super deep past that's getting a rewrite. This new science is also busting some of the biggest myths we have from movies and TV about what it was really like to live day to day in the ancient world. You've heard this a million times, right? Ancient people were lucky to see their 30th birthday. We all have this image of a 35-year-old being some kind of frail, wizened old elder. Well, it turns out that's just a mathematical illusion. That number is so low because, tragically, so many babies and young children died. It drags the whole average way, way down. New studies that look at how teeth wear down over a lifetime prove that if you made it through the dangers of childhood, you had a really good shot at living well into your 60s or even 70s. The ancient world was actually full of grandparents. And how about Roman gladiators? The movie version, muscle-bound, meat-eating killing machines. Well, chemical analysis of bones from an actual gladiator graveyard in Turkey tells a completely different story. They ate a mostly vegetarian diet, so heavy on things like barley and beans that they were nicknamed barley men. And there was a very practical reason for this diet. All those carbs helped them pack on a layer of fat, which actually acted as a natural cushion against shallow cuts in the arena. And get this, their bones show perfectly healed injuries. That's evidence of expert medical care. These guys weren't disposable slaves. They were highly valued, prized athletes. Speaking of stereotypes, let's talk Vikings. We think of them as these dirty, grimy brutes, right? Well, when archaeologists excavate their graves, they consistently find more grooming tools than weapons. We're talking beautifully carved combs, tweezers, even these things called ear spoons. It turns out they were meticulously clean and really cared about how they looked. Okay, for this last section, we're going to look at some mind-blowing examples of lost genius. Ancient tech that was so advanced, it just shouldn't have existed, proving our ancestors were way more brilliant than we ever imagined. Check this out. King Tut's dagger. It's perfectly made, from iron. The only problem, he died more than 100 years before the Iron Age even started. So for a century, this dagger was a huge historical puzzle. How on earth was this possible?
Modern science finally cracked the case. Using X-rays, they could analyze its exact chemical makeup without even touching it. And what they found was a unique chemical signature, super high in nickel and cobalt. It was a perfect match for iron from meteorites. The Egyptians had literally forged a blade from a rock that fell from space.
Or how about the inventor Al-Jazari? Way back in 1206, he built what was essentially a programmable robot band that floated on a boat. You could even change the drum beats and melodies by moving little pegs around. He was using engineering principles that wouldn't show up in Europe for another 500 years.
But maybe the most jaw-dropping example of lost ancient genius is this thing. In 1901, divers exploring an ancient Roman shipwreck found this corroded green lump of bronze. It basically looked like a rock. And for 70 years, it just sat in a museum, totally ignored.
But eventually, scientists decided to take a peek inside this lump using modern imaging. And what they discovered, well, it would rewrite history. Tucked away inside was the Antikythera mechanism, a ridiculously complex machine with over 30 intricate interlocking bronze gears. It was nothing less than the world's first analog computer. The ancient Greeks built it to predict eclipses, track the planets, even count down to the next Olympic Games. It proved they had engineering skills that would then be lost to humanity for over 1,000 years.
So, when you get right down to it, history isn't some fixed story carved in stone. It's a live investigation. It's a detective story where one tiny bone or one corroded rock can completely change everything we thought we knew for sure. Which really leaves you with one last question to chew on. If we've overturned this much history just in the last few years, what big facts that we all take for granted today are going to be the next myths to get busted? Thanks for watching.